So today we are with Andrea Beltrami, a first-gen Latinx digital content creator who loves to express themselves through creating TikToks. Her goal is to spread positivity and awareness over the Central American culture and diaspora, especially within the United States. So thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for accepting coming here. It's honestly like a whole fun moment. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, yay. No, thank you. I'm so excited to be here, y'all. This is a full circle moment because we've both been following each other for a long time.
Yes.
So,
So full circle. But yeah, to start a little bit
hmm
of a conversation, I wanted to start, because of the podcast, I always ask, like, how was your experience growing up as an American?
yeah. So my experience it was unique. I feel like because geographically where I grew up and the areas that I was born in. So, like, I was born in Long Beach. So, if anybody knows about Long Beach, it's a very diverse area, but I wasn't raised there. I was raised in Corona, which is in the Inland Empire, which is another county
Mm-hmm.
here in California. And so Corona was a little bit more diverse, but still more predominantly white areas. And so then I lived there for 10 years, and then I lived to Orange County for 10 years. Now, Orange County is very different, and the city that I was living in is very predominantly white. So growing up, I didn't really see my culture too much. And if I was around like Hispanic Latino kids, most of the times they were Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
Very few times I would run into like Central American kids. So for the most part, I felt like I kind of adopted a lot of things for like Mexican culture sometimes, just because like that's who I was around. That was my friends and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the slang, like if I was speaking like Spanglish, like I would like pick that up. Or also me living in like predominantly white areas, people would think I was always whitewashed too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also like a thing for me. So I wasn't around a lot of Latino kids. I wasn't around my culture. So it was very difficult for me to like find my identity. I didn't feel like I really started to like really explore that part of me until like after my grandmother passed away, which is tragic. It shouldn't have been that way. But one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't know Spanish well enough to like speak with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, ever since she passed away, I was like, no, this isn't right. Like I want to learn Spanish. I want to be able to communicate with my family members. I want to know more about my culture. So ever since then, like throughout high school, I kind of went through like a journey to like learn more about it and immerse myself. And then in college, especially, is when I really started to like dive deep
Mm-hmm.
in all of that.
Yeah, so I think that we both grew up
Okay.
around like the same area, right? I grew up here in 14, so I kind of like understand like how
Mhm.
the dynamic here we have shared here too about like here in California is very predominant like Mexican, and I think that is part
Yeah.
at one point I feel like a Central American a little bit of the slang comes. It comes part of our identity, right? Like of growing up in our area, because identity for us
Mhm.
is not only like where our parents are from or where we were born, but also where we grew up, right? So there's so many stuff like that we adapt from being around other groups. And then also that you said that experience that people are like telling you like you were whitewashed, but why is it that, right? I feel like it's always like people questioning just because the way you grew up, or like, or maybe like I hate this term of like the nosabo kid. I hate it because maybe like the your
Oh yes, hate that
yeah,
term.
maybe like the
Mm.
Spanish thing, and it's like, why are we imposing those terms into us? Like, why are we the same people like questioning your identity? You know what I mean? Doesn't matter if you're Central American or other group, but also why are we putting those terms into us? And I feel like here in the southern like California a little bit, um, that's when like I personally feel like there's like an issue with like the whole thing, because we're always putting like terms into each other without like knowing how damages it is. Especially you said like sadly your grandma passed and you decided to take the leap, like kind of like search for your identity. And how
Mhm.
was that transition? Like how do you feel like after you made like starting to reconnect with your identity?
Honestly, it was probably one of the best things that I could have done for myself because I learned so much about like my family and about me. And not only in so much of a way like culturally, but like in a way of like healing.
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that I had like growing up, like I had like anxiety like really badly. And then ever since like my grandma passed away, like I suffered from a very long-term like depression. But once I started to like learn more about my family and my culture, then I realized like, oh, okay, my parents went through the same thing that I was kind of going through, but in a worse way. Like, think about it. My
Mhm.
dad had to flee war from his home country. That's traumatic in itself,
Mhm.
you know? And my mom, she had to leave the country for her own reasons, but she was only 16,
Mhm.
you know, and that is traumatic in itself, too. And so, learning these reasons, and I'm like, okay, so why did they flee their own home countries? Like, why did they come over here to California to be exact? Like, and all these things that I started to learn. And so I'm like, wow, so this is the reason why I am the way that I am today because of what my parents have passed down to me. And it's not their fault. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, certain things have happened in their home countries and it's unfortunate. But and it's still today the story for a lot of Central American people. So that's why I think healing is so important in our community
Mhm.
today too as well.
Yeah, definitely. And also, talking about that is the generational trauma, right? Like you have seen it with your parents, but of
Mhm.
course, like the trauma doesn't come just from your parents, it's come from like, your grandparents and stuff like that. And they've passed to us. And I feel like
Yes.
it's hard, I know, to like make the decision to start our healing process, but I feel like reconnecting with your culture and understanding why your parents like had to flee it, or why am I acting this way? What is like, those type of conversation I think that are so important in our community. And sadly, I know there's a whole like, people are like, I don't want to go to therapy, but it's not therapy, or like it's not having this conversation. It's just honestly just talking about it. It's just healing, right? Just making sure like or parents know, making sure like I or you know what has gone through that, because that is in itself a healing process. And it doesn't, I mean, of course, like therapy always, but I feel like in our community sometimes therapy is very hard to like push someone to go. So is
Mm.
as long as having those conversation with our parents, I think that is nice that you started a healing process. And then for everyone out there, just talking with your parents, I feel like is very healing for them. Like it's just the release of all the stress that they have carried, especially like migration itself, just the journey, it was like so traumatic,
Yeah.
right? So like I'm always telling like, well, imagine like that person something happened over there for them to take the decision, then the whole journey happened, then they have to come here assimilate without even healing what that just happened or process. Like that's a whole thing in itself, girl.
Mhm.
But yeah, uh
It is a whole thing. And
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go,
oh,
go,
I
go.
was
No,
gonna
go ahead.
say, like, you touched on the yeah, you touched on the good point that like they don't have any time to heal. They didn't have any time. They just had to go, 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 and work, work, work.
Hmm.
And so that's why too that mentality of like you always have to keep grinding in like our community. You always have to keep working. And I'm like, ugh, like no. Sometimes we have to take like a mental break for ourselves. And it's like seeing my dad, especially like I don't see him take too many like days off for himself. But lately, like my mom has been pushing him to take more trips and do all that stuff. So I'm really glad that they're starting to kind of like pick up on these things. And I think a lot of it has to do because of me. They probably don't want to give me credit, but I know like I'm part of it too because like I decided to be on a healing journey. So I think them too, like subconsciously, they also like want to start bettering themselves as well. So
Yes.
to anyone else out there, like all it takes is just that one person sometimes. Maybe your family is going to look at you like, what are they doing? Like, no, it's all, you know, BS or whatever. But I promise you it's going to pay off because they're going to start following. Like, they'll always start following.
Yeah, they always takes, it's always like the one person, right? And always said like it will start with you, the
Hmm.
healing process to start healing your whole family and generations to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted to ask a little bit, how was your process of starting a TikTok? As you guys know, Andrea, I have followed her a long time on TikTok, and I love her content. And it's like one of those moments that for me, TikTok is like that one place where I go and like relax. It's like olvidarme de todo.
Yeah.
After work or after something,
Uh-huh.
I'm just like swiping and like all the dances. But my heart is so happy every time I see someone talking about Central America, because it's like I don't see that enough, right? It's like, oh my god, it's like, and for me, automatic follow. Like you just say Central American, follow. Like that's it. That's it for me, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I know there's a huge community on TikTok, there's a huge community in Instagram, but like in Twitter and Instagram, but I have never felt like on
Mhm.
TikTok to have a community until like recently, that I was like, whoa, like there's more people about talking about Central American. So how was, how did you start it, like, hey, let me start a TikTok? I know you don't only focus on Central America, but what was like your inspiration a little bit more to like kind of focus a little bit on that?
So, same thing like you, because like we have our communities on Instagram, we have our communities on Twitter, but like TikTok is more like new. So when I first downloaded it, I was scrolling, and obviously my For You page was a lot of like Latino
Mhm.
content. But I noticed a lot of the Latino content was very much, it was like three countries only,
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like that's not bad. Like, they're interesting, it's fun. But I'm like, where's Central America at? Where's these other countries? And so I'm like, huh. And so I'm like, okay, well, if no one's gonna do it, then I'll do it. Like, let me just turn on my camera. But one of the first videos that I made, though, actually, it wasn't talking about Central America. It was talking about some incidents. Do you remember when in 2020 during BLM,
Hmm.
how there was a lot of street vendors conversations, and
Hmm.
then how people were comparing that to like the BLM
Yeah.
thing? Yeah. So, especially me being from California, I felt like I had to say something,
Hmm.
because a lot of the content that I was seeing about these type of issues was very much like extremely biased, and
Yeah.
some of the takes that some people were taking were just, it was terrible. And I was like, there's no way that somebody with 200K followers is telling this kind of information to these people. Like, I don't understand if they know how harmful it is, especially on a kids app. Like, think
Yeah.
about it, it's on a kids app.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the videos I first started to make, because I was like, okay, let me offer like a different perspective to the community. And then I started getting traction and stuff like that. And then people, of course, they started calling me Mexican, and I was like, no, I'm not Mexican. Like, I'm actually Central American. And so that also made me want to like talk about it a little bit more. So just to like show off my culture, and just like show people like, hey, like we're actually here. Like, we exist. Like,
Hmm.
let me show you a little bit about the culture, because I know people, especially on the media, Central American
Hmm.
culture, we don't get
Yeah.
any type of representation, and if we do, it's just sad, and it's
Yes,
just, yeah.
exactly. And talking a little bit of inspiration, that was like my inspiration kind of started like the podcast as well, because it's like we know as well with
Hmm.
media, because it's like I hate those stereotypes. I hate people saying like, "Oh, you guys are dangerous," or like gang members, or like blah blah blah. I
Yeah.
hate those terms. So I was like, I want a nice space, to talk with people like you. Like you guys are doing amazing work, and
Hmm.
people are doing amazing stuff. Like it's not everything is negative. Of course, we cannot be blind and say that our countries don't have issues, but every country has issues, right? Just people like to point our
Hmm.
countries more than others, but I feel like with your
Right.
content, one of the things that I love is that you like focus a lot of like in the culture, a lot of it educational. And I think recently, you probably have made it like a couple days ago, because I just saw it like I think yesterday or 2 days ago on my For You page, and I was about talking about the Caribbeans, how people said like, oh, we talk a little bit like we what was the thing? There was a comment. You replied to a comment that said like about the Korean accent.
Yes, he said
Uh
that.
huh. Yeah, go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was saying that basically that some Central Americans don't want to talk in a Caribbean accent.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood what he was saying. I think he meant to say like they're copying
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Ricans or Dominicans, because their music is so popular, so people want to like imitate
Yeah.
that accent. But then I was also saying like, no, there's a lot of Central Americans that are Caribbeans, but people took it as a way of saying that all of Central America is Caribbean, when I never said that. But
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, people always
Yeah.
want to twist your words and be like, why did you say that? And I'm like, when did I say that? I didn't say that in the
I
video.
know TikTok always tried to like just, but I really love the video because it's like it's true. Like we are in the Caribbean coast, and I know you probably know Tali Dilbert. Hope I'm pronouncing her last name right.
Yes,
Uh,
I do.
okay, and like last time I think she shared like a
Yeah, I think it's her
content,
last
yeah,
name. Yeah.
about how people from la Bahía de Roatán, la isla de Roatán in Honduras, how they they speak English, and how their, you
Mhm.
know, their language is, I think they call it pato. Something with a P. I forgot the action. I don't want to say it wrong. And I was like,
It's like Bay Creole or something. I
yeah,
think it's like
uh-huh,
patois
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I was like, whoa, like this
Mhm.
is something that I mean, I'm Honduran. I grew up in Honduras 14 years, and I never heard, you know, like I knew they speak English, but I didn't know it was like a different English, you know. And it's like, whoa, if you hear it, like it sounds Caribbean,
Yeah,
right? Because we are in the Caribbean coast, you know, like it's,
it
you know,
does. It
so like
does.
things like that, of
Yeah.
course, like we all like in social media, you're always gonna have those that are gonna complain or like will come and tell you though, but honestly, for me, I feel like seeing that video that you share, I was like, well, it is important to start like talking about our side of the Caribbean. Of course, we're not like in like una isla of close to, like, you know, what is Cuba, what is Puerto Rico, what is like Republican Dominican,
Mhm.
but there is a lot of influence, especially with the Garifunas, you know, community, especially with like in the Mosquitia, a little bit of Nicaragua. There is influence, and for us, it's like I always tend to say, like,
Yeah.
imagine like people always asking, we need more representation for the Latin and Latinx community in media. Okay, but then I've always said like, but then there's these little groups with it, and I don't want to like divide it, but it's like, what about like Central America with a small little group within that Latin, and we don't get that representation. So then I would take the group of Central America, and then we go like,
Mhm.
well, what about the indigenous people in Central America? What about the Garifuna people in Central? What about Afro Latinos of like, you know, there are so many things. So if we want to talk about like inclusivity, we have to have this conversation. Why do we have different accents? Why do we talk different in different areas? Why do it look different? Why do, you know, like it is a whole conversation. So I think that
Mhm.
to people,
Yes.
yeah, it might sound like controversial, whatever they want to say, but it's the start of those conversation that will lead us to have a better representation in the future.
I 100% agree. Wow, that was a word. Look at that. That was a word. I love that. That was a word.
uh,
Amen. I people, especially people in the Latino community, that's one thing. Like we want to scream like unity, we want to scream inclusivity, we want to scream representation,
mhm,
and that's great. Like I understand the message, and I think we should keep pushing for those things. But also, we have a lot of work to do if we want those things. Like you said, we have to recognize what are our influences of the
mhm,
culture. Obviously, it's African influences or
mhm,
indigenous influences, very big things. But some people want to deny that, so I'm like, okay, that's a step back. Like
mhm,
you can't deny those things and then want inclusivity at the same time. You have to include everybody.
mhm. Yep. And you know, it's time like I am always like right here promoting like it will start with us. We have to take the leap of like following and
Yeah.
telling people, hey, you know, we need to include everybody in order for us to have what we all need, right? But as you said, some people they're like, well, deny this side. No, I'm not. I don't have indigenous. You know, I don't this and this and that. It's like, well, I don't. We
Yeah.
should like if we want a whole movement, we have to push together. But you know, one of the things that I also wanted to like ask you, what is something that has surprised you in the platform since you started?
Um, what surprised me is how much TikTok does not like political stuff. They really don't. They'll take it like you could be like political. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's say like I talk about I don't know. Let's say like someone talks about anti-blackness
Mm-hmm.
within the Latino community. You
Mm-hmm.
know, a lot of people talk about that. And then TikTok will give you those views and they'll be like, oh, this is an interesting topic. You know, people might think it's controversial,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's political. And then you'll get a bunch of comments, you get a bunch of likes. And then the next few videos that you might want to continue on the topic or talk about something else that's also important, TikTok will take away those views. And then they'll suppress your views to make sure that, you know, your information isn't getting out there anymore. Yeah, they do it all the time. They do it all the
What?
time. It's called like shadow ban,
Oh, okay.
and that's yeah, and even me, I'm actually banned from going live like permanently, so I can, and I didn't do anything. Yeah, so and I didn't do anything. Like I was literally just there. Like I had max 3 people on there, and I was just talking to them, having a regular conversation. I was there for like 25 minutes, and all of a sudden, boom, they were like, "You've been banned from going live permanently," and then it was like what was the then they tell you like a reason why, and it was like due to adult nudity, and I was like, what? I wasn't even nude on here. So I'm like, that's so weird, so weird, right? So that's like one thing that surprised me about the app is just like, because I don't consider myself a problematic individual, but yet there's so many people on this app who are
Mm-hmm.
insane individuals. I'm not going to get into it, but they're insane individuals, and they still have a platform. They still make money,
Mm-hmm.
and everything's okay. So that's one of the things that surprised me. I'm like, wow. So this app really does have favorites, but I'm not going to give up though. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah,
So
don't give up. What? I am like in shock. I was like, wait, I was
yeah,
talking about like, wait, political. My whole For You page is political. Like,
I know,
my whole, but
but
it's based on what you like as well.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because my For You page is Central American, Afro Latino, and then political, and then Back Bunny. That's all my thing. It's just so full.
Bad Bunny, yeah, I have a lot of Bad Bunny content too. I love Bad Bunny.
Uh,
Love that
I
man.
love him so much. But yeah, I feel like it's true. I mean, I'm like big kind of like in shock about what like the shadow ban and also why you were banned for it. Like I feel like it kind of because
Yeah.
I mean I was in the light, but I'm like bro, like how can it was because what like I was wearing something, but it will be kind of like same thing. Like in school they take you to the dean for having like strap. It's like, oh Lord. But also like TikTok, I feel like
Oh yeah.
yeah, with TikTok, I think wait, what was it the thing? Give me a second. I think last time I saw there was like this government that don't saying like they want to like cancel TikTok from like the being downloaded or something like that. But I'm just like
Mhm.
the reason what I feel like there's a lot of conversation TikTok because I know it's not an American app, but it also like it has this type of sense that because that content is shared to a lot of people, not only to your followers, um, it might be intimidated, quote unquote, right, for political like
Mhm.
conversations. But I'm just like, wait. That's why I was like, when you said political, I was like, wait, what? My whole thing is political, but it's true. Like it, this platform does create a lot of conversation, and those conversation that probably we didn't know that we needed, or like people that we see it's just like damn, like I didn't know I needed to find this person to feel motivated for doing whatever, right? Or like I didn't
Yeah.
think I needed to hear someone talking about how I felt as like my identity, or how I felt like person like in like I don't know. There's a lot of course therapists in the app as well, so like it there it creates that type of conversation. So I that's why I'm very surprised of like whoa, like there those conversation after like they stop you from doing that, like it's just like so confusing. But never give up.
Yeah, yeah, it is confusing. Like a lot of people don't understand it until like you make content yourself and you see the views and you see what happens. Like it's just a weird thing that the app does because like they'll give it to you, they'll give you the views, they're like, here's your cookie, but then after a while they're like, okay, we're gonna take it back because you're doing too much. Like,
Wow.
and like that's just kind of how they work. Yeah, it's just kind of how it works. I see it happen to myself all the time. It's like other TikTok creators, and then that's why you see a lot of creators they'll say like they're done with the app because they want to spread the message, they want to talk about what they want to really talk about, but
Mhm.
at the same time TikTok is going to be like, nope, we might take this video down. Yeah.
I know. Is it does there has to be a lot with like people like you know what's it called, like reporting it, or it's just TikTok in general?
It could be that. It could be that. So, because sometimes I've had some videos where I know people like reported me because they didn't like what I said. But there's also been times I had a video taken down just because
Just because.
I don't know, TikTok was just because TikTok was like, nope. And I was like, I could see why, but okay.
Oh Lord. But of
Yeah.
course, don't give up. You're doing amazing. As a
Thank
person who loves
you.
your content, I'm always like in my For You page, you always come out like I'm just like go.
I love that.
But I wanted to ask, also, do you think, as a Central American, and then we know that there's other Central Americans creating content about like talking a little bit more about Central America, what do you think that it should be something that Central Americans should talk more about? in the platform?
Um, I think what should we talk about more? Honestly, I'm not gonna tell people
Mm-hmm.
like I think we should talk about our history more or push the culture because I follow plenty of Central American influencers. I think we could call them that. They don't talk about the culture really.
Mm-hmm.
Time to time they will, but for me, I think what I would like to see more of is just more of us in general. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't care like what it is that people do,
Yeah.
whether it's fitness, it's makeup, beauty. I just want to see Central American
Yeah.
TikTokers. I just want to see more of it. That's all. So I think that's one thing that we could do is just like have more of us. Like barely now I'm starting to see more and like people are following me and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my God, so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like this person's Honduran, this person's like Panamanian. I'm like, that's cool. Like before it wasn't too much of that. So for me, I just want to see more of us. So if you're out there and you want to make content, please make content. We need you.
Please, yes. I don't know about you, but I'm
Yeah.
always get excited when I'm like looking at, I don't know, like you said, like it's not random content, but like something that is like either fitness, beauty, whatever they want to focus. And then I go on their profile and there's a little flag. And I'm like,
Yes. I get excited too. I'm like, let's go.
let's go. Automatic follow, go on Instagram, automatic follow.
Me
because
too. Me too.
because
I do the same
because
thing.
it's like at the same time we talked about like for representation, but also for us to have represent we have to have unity, right? And as I was like like
Hmm.
to people might think that a follow does not means a lot. It's like, oh my god, it's a follow, they will come out again on my For You page. No, like the follow means like the person like a support to keep going, to creating what you're doing. It's like, hey, I believe in you, continue doing it, girl. Like a like, a save, a comment. Like it's the push that for people like to create content, to continue doing it, to push more for that.
Yeah, that's all it's about. It's just about supporting our people and making sure that they win. Because, like you said, okay, it might be a little bit follow, like just a little follow, but that one little follow could mean a whole lot. And that means like there's a supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like you told me that you've been supporting me from the beginning. And so I'm just like, wow, like that's actually really crazy.
Yeah.
So you eventually meet these people and stuff like that and you make
Mm-hmm.
connections. It's all important. I think it's all important.
Yes, yes, and like you mentioned, like, yeah, I have followed you on TikTok, but I didn't know you have followed me on the podcast. So I was just a hopeful moment.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, excuse me, she knows about me.
I seen the notification. I seen you follow me back, and I was like, "Wait, they follow me back!" So I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, because I was like, I sometimes, of course, with my person, I'm always like in my personal one, and I of course focus on the
Hmm.
podcast one. But sometimes, I just, I'm just in my personal one, and then when I was like, okay, let me reach out, let me follow them from the. I think I still follow. I went to
Yeah.
check if I follow from that one. And I was like, no, I don't follow her really, and I follow back, and then your response, your email response, I swear, I had me like, I was like, excuse me, girl, I'm about to like have a whole fan moment right now.
Aw.
Oh, you
Thank
know.
you. Oh my god.
But I wanted to, of course, tell you thank you for everything. Thank you for that content. You're great. Thank you for put the spotlight on Central Americans and TikTok. It honestly, believe me, if it's as a personal, but I'm sure a lot of people who have felt like recognized with what you share, recognize about like being Central American in the app, in an app that is share everything that you can
Hmm.
think of. Then we see a video that talks about us, and it's like, oh my god, like it's happening, like the whole movie is happening,
It's happening. Yeah.
right? So like, thank you, thank you, thank you, la verdad, like from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for every content
Oh,
creator,
thank you so
you know,
much. Thank you.
for every content creator out there, for everyone who's thinking, I may start like start, start. We need more content. We need more Central American doing what they love, doing what they, about creating this community, as we said, to continue pushing for representation. And thank you so, so much. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think my last message would be to like all these Central American content creators. I think we can heal through so many things, and that's through unity, that's through representation, that's through arts, music, whatever it is that you want to do. Like, please do it and show off whatever it is that you have because I'm sure there's a lot of talented people out
Oh
there.
yeah, there
So
is.
we need to see it.
Yes. And I wanted to give you a space to share your social media. Maybe someone who's listening to this podcast, like, I
Oh
don't know,
yeah.
go share your social media, go follow her and everything.
Okay, yeah. So my TikTok is Drea the Bee. So it's Dreaa and then the B, and then my Instagram IG is Drea BB. So two A's, two B's.
Yes. And then do you have a
Yeah.
Twitter or anything?
I do have a Twitter, but I don't really share
Okay.
that. I just keep that for
Okay,
myself.
that's your
Yeah.
personal one. Okay, girl, I got you.
Yeah, that's my personal one.
Okay. But for everybody, if you want to follow, Andrea, I'm going to be linking her TikTok and her Instagram down below. That way you can go follow her, give her, support her and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, anything else you wanted to share?
Love you all. Thank you all for the support. I mean, you guys got me on here, so I'm honestly so honored. This is like my first podcast interview just off of me making content. I hope I get many more. And thank you so much for the support. Thank you guys. This is only the beginning. I'm barely starting. I'm going to get better and better and better.
Yes, girl. Yes, yes, yes. All in the beginning, and I'm glad.
Yes.
Feel honored to have you here. And even if it's your first podcast episode, I'm honored to have you here as well. um,
Yes. Thank you.